Hi everyone, this is Ekaterina and today I'll be talking about my second practical session in the study program to become a counselor. Now, for those who haven't seen the first practical session video, please, I do recommend that you watch it. I'll add the link into the description because those two videos are linked. And just as in the first video, we had to have a 20 minutes recorded counseling sessions, and I was working with the same student as last time, so they were playing the role of a client while I was playing the role of the professional skilled helper or counselor, and we had a third student observing our practical session. And I would say that even just from the second practice, I could already see some areas where I have definitely improved in comparison to my first practical session. And again, there are a couple of points that I've noticed where I think I need to definitely adjust my ways of dealing with people or behavior. So I hope you will find this interesting. And I also wanted to mention that the reason I am talking about my practical sessions is also to show just how different the normal conversation with our friends and relatives is to a conversation with the counselor, and how somebody who is starting to become a counselor, am needing to really adjust my behavior, change my habits, and that this is not always easy. So I hope you will see the differences as I'm sharing in this channel more of my experience as I'm learning new skills and maybe noticing things about myself that are okay in normal life but would definitely not make me a good counselor if I don't adjust them to an extent. And I hope it will also make people appreciate more all the work the counselors need to actually do to change their ways of speaking, listening, just general behavior, so that they can be truthfully helpful to their clients. And yeah, sometimes it's not something people understand. They just think, they're coming for a chat with the counselor, but there's actually a lot of work behind that from the counselor side. So let's talk about the areas of improvements, and there were two definitely. First was the time management, and second was me being better with silence. So with regards to time management, I would say generally in my day-to-day work, I deal with lots of meetings, presentations, trainings, and I always thought that I was good in time management because if I had a presentation for 1 hour, I would always deliver it on time and even have time to spare for questions and answers. However, in counseling, the time management is a bit different. Yes, you do need to be aware of time. You need to make sure you finish your session within 50 minutes or 1 hour, whatever you have agreed with your client. You need to make sure you give them the warning, like about 5-10 minutes before your session is about to finish. But at the same time, you're not really managing your time specifically, you're managing another person's time. And some clients are very talkative, and therefore it's a bit difficult for the counselor maybe to kind of slow them down towards the end of the session and bring them to summarizing what they've said, or in case the client was very upset during the counseling session, to get them back to here and now and maybe help them calm down a little bit and get out of those negative or sad emotions. So obviously the time management in counseling is a bit different, but also I would say in my first practical session, I felt a bit lost because I didn't feel comfortable maybe checking the time while the client was sitting in front of me. And truthfully, I just forgot what time we started a session, so it was very difficult for me to count the 20 minutes. Nonetheless, in the second practical session, I made a conscious effort to remember the time when we started, make sure I knew when exactly I needed to give them the warning about the session coming to the end, and we closed our session very nicely within the 20 minutes limit. So I felt more, I would say, in control in this area, but also didn't make it very obvious to the client and the observer that I was checking the time. So again, small improvement, but I think it will get better with practice. It's just something not very natural for us to, time the conversation we have with another person when it's not a team or work meeting. And the second area, as I said, where I felt already a bit better was me handling the silence. And in the first practical session, as I shared before, whenever the student who was playing the client went silent, I was always ready with my question, and I was feeling that silence constantly without even realizing. So it was only thanks to the recording that I was able to observe it from the side and think, I'm not really letting any sort of thinking silence to occur. I'm constantly bombarding my client with questions. So this time I really had to make myself sit quietly and listen. And you would think that it should be easy, but actually it's really difficult to change your behavior so quickly. So I had to consciously think, don't speak. Give it, give it a few more seconds. Maybe the client will continue on their own. And this is what actually happened. There were at least 2 moments where I was completely silent for over 1 minute. And afterwards I felt so proud of myself, because in those moments the client was sharing something, the problem they had, and then they had a moment of silence, and then they again came back to that conversation. And a few times they actually came to some conclusions without even me saying a word. And later on, both the client and the observer gave me a really good heads up for being quiet in those moments. So yes, sometimes silence can be powerful, and there's something about our mentality that we feel that we always have to do something to help people, while actually sometimes we have to do nothing and just let people, kind of explore their own feelings, their own thoughts, and sometimes they will resolve it themselves. But they just need that support. They just need to know that there's somebody next to them, somebody who could help if necessary, but yeah, somebody who just listens to them. So the power of silence is immense, and definitely it's something, again, I would like to be even better at in the future. But just by making those little small adjustments, I could definitely already see some positive changes. And maybe now going to a couple of topics where I thought, more improvements is necessary. And this is something I didn't see from the negative side in my first session, but it stood out to me in the second. And it's the fact that I'm quite organized person who likes to plan every single thing. So in my work, it's very useful because I always come to my meetings prepared. I always present something that I'm confident in. However, while I was preparing for the second session in this course, again, I did the same. I tried to prepare for the session. So I was thinking of what sort of topics we might discuss, what sort of questions I might ask. And I think part of me did that as well, so that I felt more prepared and that I could maybe use all the counseling skills required for this assignment. So I think I mentioned before that we are rated on this assignment, so we have to also write a report later on. The recordings will be shared with our teacher and external marker. So I think all the students were aware that yes, it is a practical session, yes, it is our first experience, but we have to show that we're using the SOLAR model, the active listening skills, reflection, summarizing, paraphrasing. So in the back of your mind, you kind of think, I need to display all those skills. I need to remember to use all those skills. And hence why I wanted to prepare for this session, so that I could make sure I will display those skills and therefore get good marks. But what I should have actually done is I should have come quite unprepared, because during this session, something I've noticed is that I was not letting completely the client lead the conversation, because in the back of my mind, I already had a couple of questions I prepared. So sometimes I was asking them, even though they were not the right question to be asked at that specific moment. And I think rewatching the video, I felt a bit embarrassed about that. And the fact that even though I was listening to the client, I was not asking the question that made the most sense at that moment, but I was more stuck on the questions that I thought I should cover, because I've kind of already pre-planned that. And obviously you cannot have that structured approach when you have a client. And I'm glad I've seen this in my second practical session, rather than maybe later in my study program in year 3 or 4. So it is certainly something I will try to do more, come unprepared and just let the client lead the conversation. Stop thinking about all the skills I have to display, and just give them the help they need and use the skills that most suited for that moment. So it is something that actually I notice the most. The client and the observer didn't pick it up. However, I think this is something I would like to continue working on. And lastly, there was one, I would say, fun moment in the session, and I wouldn't say it was really bad, but again, it's all about learning from our practical sessions, from our experience. And what happened is that I've asked my client if they had any other concerns they would like to bring to my attention. Now, we've already covered some problems with perfectionism, confidence, and maybe lack of decision-making skills. However, I just wanted to make sure that maybe there were some areas that the client has forgotten in the first session, and therefore I wanted to give them again opportunity to speak up and maybe let me know if they have any other concerns in case we need to change kind of the priority order of what we were working on. So I asked this question, and I still think it was an amazing question. Certainly, the counselors should never just rely on the topics or concerns raised in the very first session when the client might be still uncertain about counseling. They don't know if they can trust the counselor. So it is important to bring this topic later on as well, just to make sure that there's nothing else on the client's mind that maybe they don't feel comfortable sharing because they think they already set up sort of the order of priorities. So yes, I think good question. Everyone agreed on that. But the problem was that I've asked this question about 3 minutes before ending our practical session. So in this case, the student playing the client, they said, no, I don't have any other issues. But in real life, there's always possibility that a client will say, actually, I've never mentioned my, let's say, drug addiction. And then you have a completely new topic that you cannot just kind of drop, that maybe the client wants to talk more about, but you will have to stop your counseling session in a few minutes time because you run out of your time. So the timing was definitely not correct. And this is something, again, really good little experience. You have to try it in order to really notice things, and I do think it's really great to learn on your own sort of mistakes. So I think this hopefully will not happen again. And again, it was really fun to rewatch the videos and just see how this question came up so late. And as I say, I was just lucky that my client didn't want to raise anything at that moment. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. Please continue following this channel, subscribe, like the videos, and leave your comments. I will be very much interested to hear what you think about this channel, about the material I'm sharing, and also about my practical sessions. And if some of the viewers are also trying to change some of the behaviors they display while talking to other people, please let me know how did it go. Did you find it easy or did you find it difficult, just like myself? So next week we'll be talking more about theories of psychology. So we'll be talking about Freud, Pavlov, and Carl Rogers. And I'll say in particular Carl Rogers because his style of counseling is something that I'm trying to learn more of through my study program. So thank you again for your attention. Please remember to take good care of yourself, and I'll see you next week. Bye bye.